Hi there, it's Denise Eckert, and I love coming on here and sharing different ideas to help you lower your stress. And one of our biggest thing is to avoid burnout. And today I've got the wonderful Jamie Gantt, who is a coach, speaker, and author who helps ambitious women ditch burnout and redefine success on their own terms. She's all about honest conversations, real self-care, and building a life that actually feels good. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Denise.
Now, what inspired you to do this type of work? And I understand you have a burnout story that you would like to share with us.
Yeah, I did decide to do this type of work because of my own burnout. And the way that it happened really was my decision to try and become successful it was kind of born out of a very toxic upbringing. So I grew up in a very unstable household, very toxic environment. We didn't have a lot. And so I created this idea in my head based on what I saw from social media, from other people in the world who seemed to have things that I wanted. I created this picture of success in my mind and I chased it. So I went and I got an undergrad degree in business, started working in call centers, and I worked my way up the ladder. I started as a customer service rep, and then got promoted to trainer, then got promoted to supervisor, then got promoted to manager. And I was just going up and up and up. And all throughout that time, I just got more and more exhausted, more and more stressed, more disconnected from myself. And it became almost like this work hard, play hard mentality. So I would work, 50, 55, 60 hours a week. And I was taking my work home with me, then going out for drinks after work to quote unquote wind down, hanging with all the coworkers out until midnight, 1 o'clock, up the next day at 5 a.m., go to gym, go to work, do all the things, lather, rinse, repeat. And it reached a point where I was incredibly anxious. I had developed severe OCD symptoms. I was constantly just in almost like a state of panic. Like my fight or flight was constantly on. And it started to impact my work. I started calling out sick all the time. I would just lay in bed for hours staring at the ceiling with a list spinning through my head. Oh, I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. I should do this. And my body just didn't want to move. Like I just could not get out of bed. I just stared at the ceiling. It would be evening before I even got out of bed. So that was when I realized that something's got to give, something's got to change. I ended up leaving my corporate job as a result, and then I found my way to coaching. But yeah, that was my burnout story. It got pretty hectic.
I can relate completely. Like I was exactly the same. Work hard, play hard. And one of the things too was in that day and age as well, it was the busier and the more stressed you are, the more successful you were. And
Yes.
how wrong is that?
And it's a thing that we're all taught. And I even remember there it was like this unspoken agreement. If you're the first in the office and the last to leave, then you're doing well. And if that's not you, then, come performance review time, that's going to be a conversation like, oh, if you really want to make yourself visible, if you really want to keep working, you've got to make sure that people see you doing the work and doing this and doing that. And it's like, oh, it's just too much.
I can relate. I remember working for this one place where I was on contract. So everybody would leave for at the end of the day and I would stay to get the work done. And then I'd show up late in the morning and people were resentful. And it's like, you know what? I was here till 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to be here at
Yeah,
9.
exactly.
And I don't know. I ended up always getting sick. So I ended up having a lot of issues with pneumonia was my big
Mm,
thing. Now,
yeah.
are there any hidden signs of burnout that we wouldn't normally look for?
Yeah. So, what I've come to understand is a lot of different things could be signals of burnout that we might not think about. So, obviously, exhaustion, like when we feel burnout, or if we just feel demotivated, I think most people know that's a pretty good indicator. One thing that I'm not sure everybody knows is getting irritable. And especially as women, I think we just assume it's a hormone thing when we get irritable. But sometimes it might actually be a signal that we're burning out because we start getting a little bit more tense. We get a little bit more short tempered. It's a little bit more difficult for us to focus and concentrate. Another good sign of burnout, surprisingly, what I learned through my own experience was the OCD. So for a long time, I would just say, no, I'm just A-type personality. I just want to control things. I just want to make sure that everything's organized and just so. But actually, it was really developing into severe, severe OCD. And eventually it got to the point where I was having to do activities in threes. Like I would have to go and check all the locks on my doors 3 times. I would check all the knobs on the oven 3 times. I would have to go and check all the windows 3 times. Like it was this thing that became these patterns. And all this time, I just thought, oh no, I'm just very organized and very controlling. That's not a burnout thing, but it is. And another thing is just becoming a little bit like despondent. Some people might confuse it for depression symptoms, but it's not actually depression. It's just an almost like apathy or a despondence where you're just feeling a little bit disengaged from what it is that you're doing. And this can be especially eye-opening if you're in a career or in a job, because I think for a long time I was kind of anti-corporate because of my experience, but actually corporate is great if you understand how to take care of yourself in that environment. So you might be doing work that you absolutely love, that when you first started, you were diving in, you were ready, you were learning so many different things, you were feeling challenged in a good way, and it was great. And now you're finding yourself sort of phoning it in, and feeling a little bit apathetic or despondent, just like, ugh, this isn't really, that could actually be a signal of burnout. And you just need to reconnect and find that alignment to rediscover the joy and the healthy challenge that comes with the work that you do.
I want to go back to the OCD. Now, was that basically a way of you letting out some stress? Like, do you still find yourself doing the OCD things, or did that go away once you dealt with your burnout?
That's a great question. It actually has gone completely away after I dealt with my burnout. It's actually even weird now to think about it because that was about 10 years ago when I had these symptoms. And it's even weird to think about now because it's hard for me to reconnect with that feeling. But I think it was a way of trying to just bring some sort of order. I think that what I was dealing with, because I was in the thick of burnout, I felt like I had no choice in the matter. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people, especially when we're chasing success and we're trying to move up the ladder. We start to think, well, I have to do this. I have no choice. I have to say yes to this project. I have no choice. I have to stay late. I have no choice. What if I lose my job if I don't do it? What if I don't get that promotion and I need to pay for this, that, and the other? And we convince ourselves that we're obligated and we have no choice and our back's against the wall. And that's exactly what I was experiencing. And I think the OCD was manifesting as a way of me trying to create some sort of choice. Like I'm doing this because I'm in control. It just became a very unhealthy expression of what that was.
Well, it almost became a coping mechanism because it sounded like you had difficulty with boundaries. And instead of creating the boundaries where you're taking your own health into your hands as a priority, you created this coping mechanism to get some of the stress out of your body, which, you know what, thank God, because who knows what would have happened if you didn't have that.
Yeah, exactly. I think I love that you said that because I think that's an important thing for people to recognize. If you do find yourself in burnout and you're thinking, oh my gosh, how the hell did I get here? And you're thinking about all the things that you're experiencing, whether it's something similar to me with the OCD, or if it's something else, maybe it's excessive drinking, which is something I've seen a lot in the corporate world, or just excess eating, excess this, excess that. It's a coping mechanism. And it's really important to give yourself that understanding and compassion that, you know what, you had to do something to survive the situation you were in. And that was what you chose based on what you knew. And that's okay. And once you learn something different and you find a new way to cope and deal and work through and understand, then you'll choose something different. But everything that you're choosing now, up until the point that you decide to do something differently, it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's what got you through at that time.
Now, for someone that's listening to this and recognizing that, yes, I feel that I'm in burnout or going into burnout, what do you think their first step could be?
Mm. Yeah, I think honestly, the very first step is to evaluate what matters to you. So, looking at things like your values, your strengths, and the things that really give you that kind of pull in your heart space, that gives you a passion or a fire where you're just like, oh yes, I feel so good when I'm engaged in this kind of stuff. So understanding what those things are, because I think a lot of times when we're burning out, it's because we've lost connection with that true inner self, and seeing where we're out of alignment, especially with values, because that's something that you can put on paper. I value adventure. I value consistency. I value, all of those things. Then you look, okay, every day, what am I doing that's in alignment with these values? And if you find that you're not actually aligned with them, that's your first clue. Start finding ways to align with your values. I think stress reduction techniques are great. There's breath work, there's yoga, there's meditation, there's a myriad of resources out there. But I firmly believe none of those resources will help if you don't have the alignment first. You have to understand who you are before you can start creating strategies and using tools to cope.
Now, when you were talking about when you couldn't get out of bed and you had the shouldas and couldas and your to-do list, how do you eliminate that? Because that's a real common thing. And I've done it so many times. I should be doing this. And even sometimes when you're taking time off from your job or your business, you do have that thing in your head going, you should be doing this and you should be doing that and all this should.
Yes, that's so true. And I know that some people that are high achievers, especially women that I've worked with, it's almost like I'm allergic to rest is what I hear often. I'm allergic to rest. I can't just stop. But it is. And what I like to say often is stop shooting all over yourself. But I really think that it's a matter of, because this is a belief system. This is some deep core stuff. So when we are stuck in these patterns of shoulds, if you really dig deep down into it, it's because there's a core belief somewhere inside of you that was formed at a very young age. And it's a decision that you made about yourself and about how you are supposed to show up in the world. For some of us, it's a value thing, like I need to prove my worth. And so I should be doing XYZ to prove that I belong, or to prove that I'm worthy of acceptance or worthy of love. For some people, it's something different. It might be, it's important to me to be seen as a provider. And so in order for me to be a good provider, I need to do XYZ. And whatever it is, it depends on the person. But I think that it's really important to start asking yourself the question, what's telling me that I should be doing this? What's telling me that if I don't do this, something bad will happen? What do I think will happen if I don't do it? So really starting to get curious and start doing some self-inquiry, like, where is this coming from actually? And some people that I've worked with have been surprised to find that even when they start paying attention to the inner dialogue, like, oh, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, I often ask the question, are you hearing this in your voice or is it someone else's voice? And a lot of times it's mom's voice or it's dad's voice or it's grandma's voice or something. So it's not even you. It's something that was taught to you when you were very young. And it's just repeating over and over and over. And that's good though, because that means that you now as an adult can unlearn and reteach yourself something new and give yourself new dialogue. But you have to know where it comes from first.
And you know what? I've been doing this podcast for years now, and you're the first person to brought that up. So when you have these I should and I should and I should, I love that. Are they in your voice or someone else's voice? Like,
Mm.
wow, that is really powerful because a lot of times we have fit ourselves in a box that was not created by us. And then we have
Yeah.
our box that we want to do, and there's just
Mhm.
not enough room in these boxes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's especially unique to women. I work with primarily women. I do have some male clients that I work with, but I do work primarily with women. And I think that I notice so often with women, we have not only the things that were told to us by the people in our lives, our parents, grandparents, etc., school teachers, things like that, but I think also there's this like underlying unspoken sort of picture of what female success should look like just from society as a whole. And so we see often, especially in social media these days, because we're all inundated with girl power stuff, right? So, like, we're hustling, we're building our empire, we are breaking glass ceilings, we're overpowering the men and things of that nature. And I think when we do that, we start to take on masculine traits and start to take on ways of being that don't belong to us, but we think it's what we're supposed to do to be that hustler, to be that empire builder, to be that glass ceiling breaker. And it's all just like this convoluted, misunderstood box that we're trying to fit ourselves into.
And I find it very true, especially in corporate and having our own businesses, especially with our own businesses, because a lot of times with corporate, you could find yourself a mentor doing similar tasks that you're doing. But when we have our own businesses where it's very unique, you don't have those role models. Like, for instance, myself, I've created a mobile app, and there's very few women, number one, doing what I'm doing. And it's so unique that, like, I can't find someone that I can look up to. Like, I see
Mm,
the end result. Okay, like for instance, the other apps out there that have are hugely successful, but they do not on social media show the struggles that they went through.
mm,
And they did. Like, I did look into the background. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden you've got, I don't know how many million people installed this thing,
mm,
because I find with social media, you see the end result. You don't
mm-hmm.
see that struggle, and giving ourselves a little leeway too.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I almost think it's a blessing sometimes when there aren't a lot of people for us to look up to, when it's something that we're doing that's so unique. Because, in a way, I think sometimes when we have so many people to look up to, we get confused and start almost trying to mimic what they've done. But our thing is not always going to be the same as their thing. It might be similar. So it's almost like a blessing to be so unique and to have such a unique position. Because then it's like, oh, I'm the thing. I'm it. I'm the only one. So everything that I do is going to set precedence. And that's kind of cool.
I like that too. And then if we are the leaders in what we're doing and we do take care of ourselves and we integrate
Mhm.
downtime and we're not working stupid hours anymore. That's how I grew up. The more
Mm,
stress, the better. And I ended up in the hospital, I don't know how many times. And
mm-hmm.
then you're not working at all.
Yeah, yeah. And it really is. I really love what you said about the more stress, the better, because I think that's something that definitely I was taught. And even now, I have to remind myself that it's okay to be okay. Like, it's okay if I'm not sitting here worried about every other thing, because it's almost like I've been programmed to believe that if I'm not worrying about something, then I'm not getting anything done. But that's actually not the case at all. And one of the most powerful things that I've learned throughout my journey as I've gotten into finding alignment, managing my energy, setting boundaries, all of those things, it's just that trusting of our inner knowing. And this is getting a little bit woo. And like sometimes corporate people have trouble digesting this, but it really is it's an inner knowing, it's an inner trust. A lot of people talk about surrendering to the universe, surrendering to the now and being fully present in the moment. But there really is so much power to that. And when we allow ourselves to just completely let go of the worry and the stress and just trust that unfolding will happen, life will show us where we need to go. Listening to that little gut pull, that gut sense, like, ooh, I'm really feeling like this is the way to go. Trust that. Do the thing, even if it's like small stuff. But the more you do stuff like that, and the more you allow yourself to just trust and allow, the more things just happen. They fall into place. You meet the right person who introduces you to the right company, who pulls you in at exactly the salary that you need to buy the house that you had your eye on. And like all the things just fall into place. But it doesn't come from worry. It comes from trust. It's interesting.
No, exactly. Because when you are worried, you're just bringing more worry in and you're bringing in more stress. And yeah, it just becomes a vicious little hamster wheel that you got to jump off. What is one small shift someone can make today to start moving out of burnout and into alignment? Like,
Yeah. So I think one of the easiest shifts that you could make is to start getting in partnership with the voices in your head, with the dialogue that's happening in your head. So when you're feeling those shoulds, when you're feeling that stress, when you're feeling that worry, kind of starting to collaborate, like asking questions, like always ask yourself questions. I'm a big advocate for self-inquiry. Ask yourself questions. What's behind this? Whose voice is this? What's telling me that this is what's supposed to be? What do I actually want? What do I actually need right now? What do I think is going to happen? So getting that curiosity going and asking yourself those questions. I firmly believe the answers live inside of us. We can ask friends for advice and we can ask for feedback and we can find our sounding boards and go to our tribe. And I strongly recommend that. Like humans can't human alone, but also so many of the answers live inside of us. So just asking yourself those questions in those moments and really starting to collaborate with that inner self, with that inner dialogue.
I love that because it's not like a lot of times when we don't question it, it's a one-way street up in our heads. And it just makes us nervous. It makes us anxious, anxiety, bring OCD, however it hits us. And we need to create that awareness and stay away from letting that take over. So I understand you wrote a book. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's hopefully coming out at the end of this year, early next year. Fingers crossed. We'll see how that goes. I'm new to the publishing world. But yes, my book is called Becoming Myself. And it's basically a self-help memoir. So I'm sharing a lot of my journey and my story about where I came from and basically the decision that I made shortly after I quit my corporate job. I started working at a remote company which afforded me the opportunity to work from anywhere. And so I sold all of my stuff and packed everything into a suitcase and a backpack and started living on Airbnb as a digital nomad. And I was on this self-discovery path and trying to figure out, like, who am I really? What do I really want to do with my life? What is going on? And so I'm taking the reader through that journey that I went on, and at the same time offering some of the tools and strategies that I picked up along the way. During that time, I got my master's degree in positive psychology. And so I have a lot of background research studies and things like that. So I throw a little bit of science in there, a little bit of tools and strategies, and a bit of entertainment. You get to follow me on my journey of digital nomading and eventually landing up in Johannesburg, South Africa, which is where I live to this day.
That was my next question. Where did you live? Where did you travel to?
Yeah. So I started in Prague in the Czech Republic. And then I actually came here to South Africa next, completely fell in love with it. And so I wanted to keep coming back. So I did every 90 days on my US passport. But I also stayed in London in the UK. I went back to Prague again because I had made friends there and I wanted to see them. I stayed in Bali, Paris, Budapest, Amsterdam. Where else have I been? I feel like
Wow.
I'm missing something, but yeah, I think that's about all
Sounds
of them.
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. So, Jamie, what are your final words of wisdom to the audience today?
My final words of wisdom are you are 100% okay, safe, and valuable, and you don't have to prove that to anyone.
Boom.
Done.
Just take that in because we don't tell that to ourselves enough. We really don't. And it's
Yeah.
funny because on the app I've created some hypnotherapy sessions, and one of the biggest things is I say we're safe. We got to stop worrying about what may or may not happen.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you've done with this app, by the way. I think it's so needed. I think it's so important for us to have those resources and access to those tools that really kind of pull us back into ourselves. Because when it comes to burnout, really, I think that we burn out because we're so busy trying to be somebody that we're not.
It's those unknown
We just
voices
have
in
to
our
come back.
head.
Yeah, we just have to come back to ourselves and then
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. So, anybody who's listening, I'll be putting Jamie's information and her contact information anywhere you're watching or listening to this. So, feel free to reach out and ask Jamie questions. So, thank you so much, Jamie. Wonderful time today. And I'm just leaving everybody a gentle reminder to slow down and enjoy life. And I'll see you in the next episode.